Yeah, I want to introduce you to data and AI at ProSiebenSat.1. First of all, ProSiebenSat.1, if you don't know, shame on you. If you know it, we are one of the biggest media players here in the German-speaking region. We have a lot of big linear TV channels such as ProSieben, Sat.1, Kabel 1, but we also have our own streaming platform, Join. You may have heard about it and seen it on all of our t-shirts here. So these people here are the data and AI people of ProSiebenSat.1, and yes, I'm actually, I need to point this direction, I think. I am actually one of them, as you can see, somewhere in the crowd. So as Natalie said, I'm Niklas, nice to meet you. I'm an associate machine learning engineer with ProSiebenSat.1, or to be more specific, with the AI hub in our company. I'm 28 years old. I started working at ProSiebenSat.1 around 1.5 years ago. And fun thing is, I actually started out as an intern, and now, fast forward 9 months, I'm here on stage, so quite a journey for me as well. So, the way we work at ProSiebenSat.1, I would say entertainment is at the forefront of everything that we do. We work hard, we play hard, and sometimes we play hard when we should be working hard. So we have a quite of cool socializing events that we like to do. We just recently had our summer festival in the neon 80s style. We have our campus parties with karaoke. We have our monthly Mario Kart tournaments, and we also do some online socializing for those colleagues who cannot be there on campus. But I don't want to introduce you to how cool we are. I think we all know that. But I want to introduce you to how we do AI, artificial intelligence. So for this, we have the AI hub inside ProSiebenSat.1. That is a centralized place where everything regarding AI in the company happens and is being developed. So we go as one centralized unit to the business and are in close contact. For this reason, we are organized alongside the value creation chain of the overall strategy of the company. So we have a create team that supports colleagues creating content, a sell team for selling advertisement, the reach team or the stream team in the middle that actually does a lot of program planning for our company, and then we have the cooperate team, which is basically doing everything in between and supporting colleagues from different departments with the help of machine learning and AI. And inside all of these core teams, we are, I would say, standard Scrum and Kanban developers with a product owner each. But as we have seen that a simple single product owner is not able to handle all of the Scrum responsibilities, as well as managing the team and the stakeholders, we have also introduced another business partner, so to speak, that is in very, very close contact with our business. One of these business partners is at our stand at D31. Her name is Jessie, so please reach out to her if you're interested. So today the topic is GenAI at ProSiebenSat.1, and for this I brought you our GenAI Playground application. That is a big application that is being used by hundreds of ProSiebenSat.1 employees every day. What it is a central hub for every employee to be able to interact with the largest and best large language models that the market has to offer. You can see we have contracts with these cloud providers, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, as well as AWS Bedrock. There we have the latest models deployed, for instance, the Google Gemini family, as well as the latest models by OpenAI, which are the 4.0 series. But we don't only do text-to-text with these large language models, we also offer text-to-image via the DALL-E 3 model from OpenAI. We also do transcripts via the Whisper integration. And finally, we are now dipping our toes into RAG, which is retrieval augmented generation, so that you're able to chat with PDFs. And I think you can all imagine how good that is to hear as an employee. So, in my talk, I was also talking about Streamlit. So what the heck is Streamlit and why do we use it? First of all, Streamlit is a Python library that is perfect for building web applications. The thing is, we don't have front-end developers in the AI hub, but we have a lot of customers and a lot of customer-facing applications. So Streamlit allows us to have actually a dashboard or a proper front-end without having to hire, I would say, front-end engineers just for this very sake. So the way we use Streamlit is a bit different from, I would say, plain vanilla Streamlit. If you know the package, we have actually written a few packages ourselves to be able to work a bit better with Streamlit. Most notably, we connected Streamlit to our Microsoft Entra ID, which is a tool to be able to make user administration, as well as user group management. So we can define user groups in Microsoft Entra ID, authenticate them directly in the app with single sign-on with their ProSieben accounts, and then we can decide which pages these people are supposed to see or not. So let's say I, as a developer of the playground, I should be able to see all of the pages, even the pages that are currently, you cannot see the laser, but the pages that are currently in development, whereas our end users, so people from all the departments, should probably not be able to see that. This we can regulate with Entra ID. We also have dedicated groups for alpha users that get then early access to new features that we are developing for the playground and can give us early feedback. Then, as you have seen, we are working quite frequently with large language models. And obviously, we don't train foundation models ourselves. So we kind of have to use the APIs of the model on the cloud providers. The big thing here is that you should not put company data into ChatGPT. If you do, please stop. With this, we can make sure that data that you put into these chats will not be used for the retraining of these models. So they're only there for the generation of the response, and afterwards they're being deleted. This is the first instance of the playground on the left side, where you can see you have this chat component. You can choose the model provider of choice, the model of choice. You set the temperature, which is more or less the creativity of the model, and then you can start chatting right away. And with Streamlit, we have a very nice UI for exactly that use case. This simple chat with LLMs has soon developed into a feature that we call self-service assistance. So first of all, assistant, what is that? That's, if you are a bit more into the lingo, that you can imagine an assistant to be like a custom GPT. So it's a chat session with some personality or flavor to it, meaning that it has a dedicated system prompt that sets the tone for the conversation, that already limits the large language model to a specific task and makes the answers a bit better. So, for instance, I've created the Cave Dev assistant, which is basically helping me with all my IT-related questions. But the funny twist is that it's only speaking in caveman language. So maybe not the best use case, but we have actually around 300 to 400 of these assistants now created by users from all over the company that are helping them with their day-to-day work. For instance, if you would have to create teaser text for a Galileo episode, the Galileo people would have to write that themselves, but now they have a dedicated assistant that just takes as input a transcript of the episode and returns a perfectly written teaser for that very case. Then, how do we actually test this? So as you might imagine, working with APIs is a bit tricky because we rely on the service of other service providers. And in the past, unfortunately, we have encountered that during the day we get notification from a user saying, hey, we cannot chat with this model. Why is that? And we were also surprised from the developer side because we didn't do a deployment. We didn't change anything in our code. So why does the connection not work? And for this reason, and which is the main part of the talk today, we have developed a set of so-called online integration tests. Integration tests because we are testing two different systems and the integration of that, our backend and domain, with the backend of the service provider, as well as online because, well, we are calling an online API. So the way that we structured this test is that we create a conversation between a dummy assistant with a dummy system prompt and an actual user. Because this is most likely the case that most of our users face, right? They want to talk to a model, they get a response back, and they might have a follow-up question. And with this structure of the test, we are trying to get closer to the reality. So as you can see, in the end, we assure that this test has 5 messages in it. All of them should be not empty. There should be 2 user queries and 3 assistant queries. And with this, we assume the test to pass. So this is more like a real-life example. On the left-hand side, you can see how we define such a fixture assistant. We actually have a domain model for our assistants, so that's why this is structured that way. But important is that you can see here we give an API name as the model to the assistant. We have a system prompt. In that case, you are an expert in answering user queries in rhymes. And we have an initial greeting message from the assistant to the actual user. In that case, hi, fancy a rhyme. On the right side, you can see now an excerpt from a pipeline that we are running nightly in a scheduled test at 4 a.m. So in this case, we are testing the connection to GPT-4o Mini, whether we can have an actual conversation with that model. So again, here's the output. You can see the chat session consists of an assistant message. Hi, fancy a rhyme? Yeah, that's the greeting message of the assistant. Then we send our first dummy user question, which is, tell me about the importance of testing in software engineering. And now we get an actual response back from the API that we are calling in this nightly test, saying, in software's vast, entangled web, testing's a threat that must be fed, and so on. So we can see, yes, the model is returning something, the conversation can take place, but it's also answering in this flavor that we introduced with the system prompt, meaning that it should always answer in rhymes. The test passes because we have 5 messages that are not empty. 3 of them come from an assistant, 2 of them are from the user. The test passed, and we can be sure, okay, we can have conversations with this very model. Which leads us basically to our morning routine as Playground developers. So all of these tests are being performed, and then the results are aggregated in a Teams post in a dedicated operations channel. First thing we do in the morning, while still in bed, we open up our laptop, we look into that Teams post, and if everything is green, then basically we can chill and start the day with a cup of coffee first. If that is not the case, as on the right side, then we might have to get active, look into the logs, see what is going on before our actual productive users do. So for us, it's important that we notice mistakes and errors before they arrive at our end users, and we can either fix them before they even have to notice, or, well, we can warn them at least. So in that very case, maybe you're wondering why did the connection to Claude 3 not work out. So we pushed a new deployment where we upgraded our model version of Boto and Light LLM, which we are using for all of these model calls. And while all of the other tests in our CI/CD pipeline passed, actually we kind of impacted the core functionality of our product, because for some reason, Light LLM sets the default region of the models that we deployed on AWS to a different region that we have actually deployed it to. Therefore, we couldn't have this conversation established with Claude, and we got this notification in Teams, and we were able to fix the mistake before any of our users were impacted. Another thing that we need to take care of is model migration. So before, when we just offered the chat, it was super easy to deprecate an old model. Let's say the Google Palm 2 model, which is being deprecated by Google itself. There's no support anymore, so we also kind of want to drop it. Before we introduced this assistant feature, we were just able to remove it from our code base and nothing would happen with the new deployment. Now, with an assistant, as I mentioned before, we have 300 to 400 productive assistants. We would affect an assistant of a user in the worst case, and they would not be able to chat with their assistant anymore. So we wrote another integration test, this time not an online one, but one to our own productive database, where we basically check, hey, which models are offered, which models are required as part of assistants that we have. And then we either get a warning and the pipeline doesn't pass, and we know, okay, shit, we cannot actually deprecate the model right away. We need to have some sort of migration in place. So for this very reason, we have an existing API for our playground, but we wrote a new endpoint that does kind of like a bulk migration of assistants that have a certain model that we want to deprecate to a newer model that we can set. So for instance, we deprecate the Palm 2 model by Google, and we replace it via just one API call for, let's say, at the worst case, all the assistants in the database with the Gemini Flash model. So the last thing to do is, of course, communicate these changes to our users. So this is something where we are currently at. As you see, this is more like an 80% solution. That's something that I have worked on over the course of one sprint. So we did not dedicate that much capacity to it. But one thing that we would like to do now is directly in the UI warn the users that were affected, whose assistant models has been changed. And finally, also currently, when we deploy a new version that deprecates a model, there is a tiny window where potentially someone could write or chat with a broken assistant, and we would then do manually this bulk migration. What we need to do is put this as part of the deployment stage, such that this change also in the underlying model structure is being reflected immediately after the new deployment. But I think that's all the time we have today. If the topic was interesting for you, please come by and say hi at our booth D31. It's right around the edge there. My lovely colleagues are already waiting for you. And I will also be there, so let's have a chat. And now I'm happy to answer your questions.
Many thanks to Niklas Baier. Wow, this was so interesting. So we now have a little time for Q&A. And I'm happy to welcome you for your questions. So is there any question you have?
Hi. So the question is, when the model is deprecated, do you have like the second model to do a backup, for example, for the client? If they really want to have a model like 24 hours a day online, and if you deploy the deprecated model, they have this window, right, in 5 minutes or, I don't know, half an hour. Do you have a backup model to give them?
That's a very good point. So if anyone did not understand the question, it's whether we have backup models for exactly that short period of time where we do like a deprecation of a model. The long answer, or let's start with the short answer. No, we don't. But it's a really good point that we also have planned for the future. Again, that's just like a more pragmatic than a dogmatic solution. The longer answer is that actually we don't need to have models available 24 hours a day. So yes, while I would agree that we need this from a coding perspective, from a practical point of view, we do these deployments after standard working hours, and the change is literally 2 minutes. So cool idea, but not yet implemented. But thanks for the question.
So we have time for one more question.
Do you have some more info on what you're planning to do for the retrieval augmented stage of your process in the future?
Sorry, I just heard retrieval augmented. You really have to put it right next to it.
What are your plans for the retrieval augmented generation based on the files that you have in your company in the future?
Okay, yeah, really cool question. So I briefly mentioned it in the beginning that we have RAG functionality. And actually, I have prepared for this the live version of our playground here. So it's a sneak peek already for you guys as well. So we have this PDF chat, which is basically already using RAG. So for this, we have developed a small component that allows you to upload a bunch of PDF files, which are then securely stored in our S3 blob storage for every user. And from this, we generate an index via Llama index. And with this index, you are now then able to chat with the PDF, and you get proper responses that are source informed, which is the basic thing that RAG is supposed to do, right? So a standard LLM, if I would ask it a question relating to one of my company documents, obviously it couldn't answer. But with RAG, we can provide these PDFs to our chat component. The Llama index query will then be compared against the documents and tries to find the chunks that are the most relevant to that user query, injects them into the conversation with a standard LLM, and then we get the response back that is source informed. So exactly, yes, we are doing that already. It's currently in an alpha stage, so it's not available yet for the broader use, but we are currently in the process of productionalizing it. Let's see if the page loads. So this is how it looks like. I already have some documents in my knowledge base. So if you open up, I don't have any, okay. So I would then upload any files here. The index would be created, I go back to the chat, and then I would be immediately able to chat with a document and get source-informed answers.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much again, Niklas.